Well, our first speaker of the day can tell her own story much better than I can. If you were lucky enough to be one of the 58 million YouTube viewers, yeah, you heard me, 58 million. That's like 59 million more views than I've gotten in my career. You watched this young gymnast named Caitlin Ohashi perform a perfect 10. You were watching one of Valorie Kondos Field's athletes. Miss Val's UCLA women gymnast won the NCAA National Championship 7 times. Let's get this summit kicked off right by welcoming the four-time National Coach of the Year, Valorie Kondos Field.
Come on, here we go. Hands in the air. Hop, 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 and pop, 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 pop. 5, 6, 7, and cut. Yay! Can you feel it? Yeah, can you feel that energy, that heartbeat, that one heartbeat that we all have? Do we know what that is? Obviously. We are all gathered here for one reason, and that's because regardless of what our professions are, we are all in the profession of developing champions in life through sport. That's what we all do. Thank you. And I am always super excited to be in rooms with people just like yourselves because I feel like I'm hanging out with the cool kids. I did not grow up in the world of athletics. All those wonderful accolades that you just heard about me are fabulous and fun, but I grew up in the world of ballet in the 60s and 70s. And so while ballet, yes, a ballerina has a lot of the same characteristics that athletes have. You learn them, we develop them. We develop how to be tough, work through pain, be resilient, be determined, be poised, have grace and all that. But the thing that I was missing growing up was the concept of team. Back in the 60s, 70s, dance didn't have this concept of team. So I grew up in junior high and high wanting to be an athlete. And I wanted to go to UCLA to be an athlete. But I was a professional ballet dancer. And in 1922, I was dancing professionally with the Washington, D.C. Ballet. Look at me. I was dancing professionally with the Washington, D.C. Ballet. And I heard they needed a dance coach for their gymnastics team. Without any hesitation, I called up the head coach. Very important life lesson to learn how to make the ask. I made the ask. I gave him my credentials, and I'll never forget when he said, "We don't have a salary for you, but I can offer you a full scholarship." My closest I could ever get to my dream of being a student athlete. So that quickly, I resigned from dancing, moved from the East Coast back to the West Coast, and came to UCLA in 1982. I was their dance coach, their choreographer. I loved it. Really knew nothing about gymnastics, but loved what I brought to sport. So I resigned. I graduate, and the athletic director calls me in her office, and she says, "We're going to be making a change with our head coaching position. We would like you to be the new head coach." She said I did that for like a full minute. After which I laughed out loud, and I said, "You understand I don't know the first thing about gymnastics?" And she said, "I've observed how you work with the student athletes. I like how you're firm but compassionate, and I trust you'll figure the rest out." And that's all I got. 1990. So, mind you, now, I know nothing about the sport of gymnastics. I know nothing about how to develop a team, a culture. I don't know anything, literally. And I grew up in the time when most coaches were dictators. They had that mentality of you've got to break them down to build them up. That's what I thought a coach was. Tough-minded, tough-talking, snarky. And the best way to get my athletes to win was to build them down so that I could be the dictator and then make them into these champions, I guess. So I studied people like Bobby Knight. And I acted. I grew up on stage. I can act. I acted like Bobby Knight. and we were horrible. And so the next year, I acted better, and we did worse. And I figured this is not working. So the whole reason it wasn't working was because I was being unauthentic to who I am and how I grew up, and the whole reason why I was hired in the first place. And to speak in the terms that we're all knowing now so well, I had to figure out my why. Why was I going to coach? And when I stopped and thought about the billions and trillions of dollars that are spent on athletics, it had to be more than bragging rights. Athletics has to be more than being able to say, ha, we beat you. Athletics has to be more than the money that follows the winning. It has to. So once I realized that, I got very, very clear with my why. My why was sport, as we all know, I'm preaching to the choir here, sport teaches the really tough life lessons that our youth don't learn in the classroom. Sport teaches us how to be champions in life, that if we do that well enough as coaches and mentors, will translate to the competition floor. I knew my why, and I'll never forget a few years later, one of my seniors came up to me and she said, Miss Val, you finally became a leader worth following because you're being true to who you are and not trying to be somebody else. And she followed it up with, even when you make mistakes, we know it's coming from a proper intention. So I have this fabulous career, the whole bit, and one of the greatest examples that I can give you as to how my why, how developing champions in life transcended sport is by the young athlete that you just heard Marcellus talk about, Caitlin Ohashi. Caitlin Ohashi, the one who went viral, I mean, think about that. She won 2 ESPYs. Here's this gymnast. She was never an Olympian. She had more views than any other athlete of any sport in that year. Professional, Olympics, anybody. This little gymnast who was never an Olympian. Why? Because when you watch her, how many of you have watched her video? When you watch that, you will all agree she exudes joy. And that's what sport is about. Well, Caitlin was on the track to make the 2016 team. And it was 2 years before that. She just won the American Cup. She's the last gymnast to beat Simone Biles in the all-around. She wasn't being recruited to college because she was going to go, and gymnasts go, and then they earn gold medals at the Olympics, and then they go professional. So I'm out recruiting one day, and I get a call, and she says, "Hi, Miss Val, it's Caitlin Ohashi." It's like, she could have said it's Serena Williams. I was like, what? And she started explaining to me how she didn't want to train for the Olympics anymore. She wanted to quit and come to college. And I said, Caitlin, I said, how old are you? She said, I'm 15. I said, you just won the American Cup. She was silent. I said, that means you're the greatest gymnast in the world right now. She was silent. I said, Caitlin, when was the last time you loved gymnastics? She was silent. And then about 20 seconds later, she said, when I was 11, before I went elite, before it got serious. I did the math. I'm like, so she spent a third of her life miserable in sport when she's supposed to be having fun, figuring out all the tough lessons. Gymnasts spend, at her level, they spend 8 hours a day in the gym. 8 hours a day. That was literally a third of her life. She had spent, as we all know, supposed to be enjoying the grind and the grit and the determination and the fun and the teamwork. She spent it miserable. So she quit on her Olympic dream. And she came to college. And her freshman year, she's like that tall, a massive rebel. Got horrifically out of shape, could barely do the gymnastics she was recruited to do. And we were in a team meeting with, a lot of you may know the gentleman, our sports psychologist, Dr. Bill Parham. And he was talking with our team about what's that one anchor inside of you that prevents you and holds you back from becoming the best that you can be. And when he got to Caitlin, she said, I just don't want to be great again. And he turned to me and he said, Coach, how does that make you feel? I said, I feel like I've been sucker punched. And at that moment, I realized I couldn't dictate to Caitlin to want to be great or to be great. I had to figure out how to motivate that in her. That's our job as coaches and mentors, to motivate change, not dictate it. And the only way I could do that was to earn her trust. And like in anything in life that's hard, especially trusting relationships, it takes time. So I backed off. And the only time I talked to Caitlin Ohashi about gymnastics was in the gym. Outside of the gym, I talked to her about school, her family, boys, whatever. And she learned to trust the fact that I cared more about her as a comprehensive whole person than the athlete that could help me win national championships. That is what I call building champions in life through sport. That is what we're all here today to do together. That is what I call getting 1% better at everything we do, and that's what we're all going to do today. And we're going to do that through, A, keeping our minds open and truly listening and not thinking we know everything. This is really cool. Dr. Parham taught me this as well. When you shift the letters of listen, it spells silent. Isn't that cool? In order to truly listen, we have to silence our minds. Silence our minds, have positive, inspiring conversation, and make a commitment today that we're all going to get 1% better in learning how we can help our youth become champions in life through sport. So, everybody up. We're breaking it out. I haven't broken it out since April. And I do want to say this is the first time I've ever been on stage not in high heels. Renata, this is for you and the kids. On 3, we are team. We're making a difference, right? Everybody in, everybody in, everybody in, loud and proud. On 3, 1, 2, 3, team! Let's have a great day.